Hey, it's Mike Biddle from TYCO US1trucking.com. I'm going to show you today how to get the Firetruck disassembled so you can replace the light bulb, solder it back on. You just need a couple of screwdrivers to get started. All of the trucks come off the same way. I typically like to grab them by wheel and just move this over to the side, and then come back over to the other side, and then this will pop right off. The Firetruck's a little bit harder, but not too bad. The next thing you're gonna have to do is there's screws on the bottom. There's a black screw here, and then of course the pickup shoes screws and weights as well. The other part that needs taken off is the bell, and once you've gotten these off, you can go to the next step, which is to remove this whole section here, which is the bulb holder. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's take this bell off first. Put this over here. And then go ahead and remove our pickup shoes. All right. And then, of course, the last screw is this one. This is actually what holds this in place. If you don't remove this one, you're going to be having a little bit of problems getting that out. All right. And it's a fairly decent long screw. All right, typically the issues that I see are with this metal wire that goes to the back, and then there's another one on this side. So those two wire rods that you see in the front just run to the back here and here. This one on this side actually will hit a white place on the striker, and that's what breaks the connection. To see the white spot there, that's when I rolled it back. That's actually what makes it flash. So these will always be on the top when you feed those back through later. But for now, we're going to take this top off here, and as you can see, this piece here has already came loose from the solder on there. So I'm just going to pull the bulb. Take the bulb away from the outside of that holder. These are the hardest chassis to get off for me. Maybe it just seems that way, but I typically, what I do is I use this to get some leverage underneath the tabs in the back. So in order to get to the tabs, you're going to need to take this off. And in this case, this one's cracked, so it comes off pretty easily. And then right here's the tab that you can actually see. So what I typically do is I will get my screwdriver wedged down in there, like so, and then push up. I'm gonna just take the screwdriver and kind of bend it toward me, and then you see that kind of just popped right out. Now this one's a little bit tricky because you're actually going to have to pull it out and then slide it backwards, because these are typically connected. So if it is connected, you have to actually kind of slide it. Going to have to kind of slide it. See how that's threaded through there? So we have to just take this and slide it out like this. And then you're going to end up with this next. So you can get to everything. While you're in here, obviously you want to clean it up, oil it, and all that. So this needs to be soldered here, so that should already be on. If it's not, solder it to this side. And then this side is the one that's soldered directly to your new bulb. And then this side here will actually solder onto the wire connector that's on this it's still in, it should have came out of the chassis if it's not. So it's actually going to be soldered on to the bulb itself right here. Now, what I've found is there's usually enough solder on these to just heat them up and get them reconnected if they've came loose, or to replace the new bulb. You just touch the solder iron to the old bulb, and then should come right off. And then when you're ready to connect the new bulb, you just reverse the process, and just, if you have to use some electrical solder, do it. If not, just use what's left on there. In this case, I'm just going to solder this piece back on to this, but if not, I'm going to do some optional directions after this that are going to show, well, actually I could just show you real quick how to pop the engine out, or the motor, I guess you would call it. So the motor, to take those out, I just take the flathead screwdriver and then I just gently pop up like this. You can see it pops out. So while you have these two rods out, make sure they're not rusty. If they are, just take some P220 sandpaper and scrub them down real good, and then clean them with some alcohol before you put them on. You want to make sure that they have really good contacts to get the lights to flash like new. This is really simple how this works to hold this in place. They just go down in the slot like so, and then the nut goes over top of it. Okay, once you've got the nut back in place, I like to just go ahead and flip it over and put a screw in the bottom to hold everything in place so I can reassemble it easier. All right, as you see, I just used the screws from here. I'm not putting the shoes or anything on, just to keep the those in place. This will give you a really good idea of how the connectors work. Let me put it over here to get a better and like I said, this runs to the back, and it's actually fed through. If you look here, there's two places here these wires run, and then they basically just go up through there, and then they're going to connect. All right. So once we've done that, we can go ahead and put our motor back in. You want to make sure that these two black magnets are facing up. If you put the one with the red side up, it's going to run backwards. So the way that I do that, and obviously this one we have this metal clip, so we've got to get up underneath there. You have to be in between these two contacts, these copper contacts, because they connect to this that part at the bottom there, that other piece of copper. So we're just going to kind of move that out of our way just a little bit, and then I have them on both sides. If you look closely, the contacts are on the outside there, and then once you've done that, then you can just easily get that down in there and just pop it into place. Once you've done that, you want to run this gently to make sure there's no friction or anything like that, and go ahead and put some super lube on your gears as well, to make sure that those are geared, and also clean all this up while you're in there. This one's already been cleaned. So this is the most confusing part, but it's actually not that difficult if you understand the principles. So this particular metal rod is going to be fed through that slot and then up through that square, that rectangular hole in the back, and then it has to be laying on top of this back axle. And then when this spins, see on the very right there that that side's got like this little white piece. Let me get this a little bit further around. Okay, as you see right here, there's that little white piece there. Then that's what breaks the connection of that metal in the back and makes the light flash. Because you basically are going to have a circuit going all the way through, because when we're finished, we're going to be putting this rod back through on this side. But for now, we're going to just run this rod through, and then I'll show you the next steps. So what I've got to do now is feed that wire up through this top back part. So that rod's got to go back through there, and I'm just going to kind of use the back there, and you see it went right in. Now the other tricky part is this has to be on the outside of this black piece right here. So you need to make sure that when you're putting this back in together, that stays on the outside, which it should. And then as you can see, I got lucky in my case, and then the rod ended up back there on top where it was supposed to be, right there. And it's going to break the connection whenever those wheels spin. And you may have to make some adjustments to that by bending it if something's happened over time. But once you've made sure that's in place, you can just line this up and just snap it right back in place. You're just going to, the back part's where it snaps, and see that just snapped right in. Now, the reason I didn't solder the other part on is because it just makes it easier to get this in the socket. Just note, this can be confusing because the other trucks solder here. It does not solder there. You're going to be soldering this piece here onto there. So we're going to feed it through. There's a tiny little teeny hole in here in the back. I'm going to try to zoom in on. All right, I'm going to use my screwdriver here and show you. So the other rod feeds through a little tiny hole right there. So you can kind of see it. Let's see if we can zoom in on it. Yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see there. Right here. That's where that rod goes in. It's on the top part, see? All right, there we go. Now this one, you're probably going to need tweezers to get back in the correct spot. See, it's coming out through the back, but this one's not going to land on top like it's supposed to. I can guarantee you that. See, it's underneath the rail. Right back there. See, it's underneath. So I'm going to go get some tweezers, and I'm going to pull that up. All right, you can kind of see. Just going to lift it up and see. I'm setting it right on top of that, right there, and that way, you know, you're making contact. So we're good on both sides. This one's the most important because it has to be far enough over to where it's going to break the connection. And once we get everything in place, it should be good. If not, you're going to have to bend it over a little bit with some tweezers to make sure it's resting up against there. All right, so now all we have to do to finish up is to solder this other side of the bulb onto this bulb right here. So in my case, I decided to just use a little spark plug gauge thing to put here as a back. I don't want to melt the chassis, so this doesn't take much to get that to solder on, and it usually has enough solder on it to where it just has to be heated up to reconnect it. All right, it's back on. So we're connected. Pull this out. And then we just have to make sure we push this rod all the way through like we did a minute ago. Just once I see it back here, I'm just going to grab it with these tweezers and pull it up over that, and then we're all set. That's what it's going to look like when you're finished up. Definitely want to make sure that this rod here is touching the inside of this, because when this spins, it has to pop up a little bit and then it comes up off the bar. You see there? Hold on, let me get it. And then it's going to break the connection and come back down. So make sure that that's, you know, touching and bent over far enough. And then as you can see, the other one's popped out, so we're going to have to pop it back in again. Fun times. Fortunately, it's easy enough. This gives you guys a real good idea how this works, though, for sure. All right, now we're set. Got both wires and everything's cleaned up real good. It's just a little hair there on the left. We're going to clean that out before we snap it back together. While we have this apart, I'm going to go ahead and I'd clean this with a toothbrush and some Dawn, get it cleaned up real good, and then it just goes back on the side. As you can see, so we're just going to attach it, reattach it right there. All right, now that we're all together and we've got our shoes back on, we're going to go test the bulb to see if it works. All right, let's take her for a test run. Working great. So if you don't have any lights, then it's probably that rod that's in the back and it's not touching, so you have to kind of just use some tweezers with the long ones like I have, kind of make it bend in place where it touches that back rod and breaks the signal. Also, if it's solid red, that means that it's not over far enough to where it touches that piece of plastic that rotates and breaks the connection. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comment below and visit our website at TYCO US1trucking.com. Again, that's TYCO US1trucking.com.